He thought the past had burned with the fire. But 12 years later, his buried daughter returned, not as a ghost, but as the woman his son was about to marry. What happens when the lies you buried come home, smiling? It was a quiet night in a calm area of Maryland. The streets were empty, and everything seemed normal. But Gideobi Jide Cole was about to do something terrible. He was a rich man, known for selling big houses and buildings. To most people, he looked like a perfect husband and father. But behind the scenes, he was cheating on his kind wife, Amarachi, with a younger woman named Tamara Washington. That night, Jide and Tamara were ready to make their dark plan real. They wanted Amarachi and their little daughter Zena gone for good. Jide made it look like a car crash. He had made sure that Amarachi and Zena were in the car alone. He secretly broke the brakes, so the car would crash. Soon, the car went off the road and caught on fire. From far away, Jide watched the flames. He stood next to Tamara, smiling. Everyone else thought it was a sad and horrible accident. People felt sorry for Jide. They came to him with tears and hugs, not knowing he was the one behind it all. That night, Jide and Tamara went back to their home and slept peacefully. They believed no one would ever find out the truth. But Jide didn't know something very important. Zena was still alive. Just before the fire got worse, a strange woman appeared out of nowhere. She ran to the burning car, pulled Zena out, and disappeared. No one saw her again. She didn't tell the police. She didn't tell anyone. Everyone believed Zena had died with her mother in that fire. Jide thought his dark secret was safe forever. He had no idea that the little girl he tried to kill would come back one day, alive, grown, and full of truth that could destroy him. 12 years have passed since the night of the fire. Gideobi, now simply called Mr. Cole by many, has moved on with life like nothing ever happened. He's now married to Tamara, the woman he once had a secret affair with. They live in a big house, have more money than ever, and are seen by others as a perfect couple. No one suspects the dark truth that brought them together. Jide thinks the past is buried, and his life is safe. They have a teenage son named Bryce. He's smart, confident, and close to his dad. One day, Bryce comes home with a big smile on his face. He says he wants to introduce someone very special, his new girlfriend. Her name is Naomi Ease. Jide and Tamara are curious. They sit in the living room, waiting to meet the girl who's caught their son's heart. Then Naomi walks in. The moment Jide sees her, everything stops. His heart beats fast. His hands feel cold. Naomi is beautiful, graceful, and calm. But what shakes him is her eyes. They are Amarachi's eyes, the same gentle but strong look his late wife had. And when she speaks, Jide hears the voice of Zena, his daughter who he thought died in that fire 12 years ago. He can't breathe. He stares at her, confused and shaken. She smiles at him like she's meeting him for the first time. She greets Tamara politely and laughs softly at Bryce's jokes. She acts completely normal, but to Jide, it's like a ghost has walked into his house. He keeps watching her, trying to find a mistake, something to prove it's not Zena. But the more she speaks, the more his fear grows. He starts sweating. He tries to talk, but forgets his words. That night, Jide can't sleep. Naomi's face keeps flashing in his mind. Her voice echoes in his ears. He begins to question himself. Is he going crazy? Did Zena really die? Was there a mistake? Or is Naomi just someone who looks like them? But in his heart, he knows, and Naomi knows too. She watches him carefully when Bryce isn't looking. Every smile she gives hides a storm. She remembers everything, the fire, the screams, her mother's last words. But now she's back, not as a lost child, but as a strong young woman, right under the roof of the man who tried to erase her. She's not here to forgive. She's here to make him remember. Jide can't stop thinking about Naomi. Ever since she walked into his house, everything has felt wrong. He tries to ignore it, but her voice, her face, even the way she smiles, it all reminds him of Zena. He can't sleep, can't think straight. He starts watching her closely, looking for answers. He goes through her social media, asks Bryce questions, even tries to look calm around her. But deep inside, he's breaking down. One day, while pretending to have a normal conversation with Naomi, he gently asks about her past. She tells him her only family was her guardian, Ms. Florence Ease, who sadly died last year. She says she doesn't remember much from before the age of 8. No photos, no baby pictures, no stories about her childhood. It's like she just appeared from nowhere. That makes Jide even more afraid. He knows something isn't right. A girl that age should remember something. So he hires a private investigator to dig into Naomi's past. The man comes back with very little. Naomi's school records only start from when she was around 8. There are no earlier records, no hospital birth certificates, no old neighbours, nothing. Just Ms. Ease, who adopted her, raised her quietly, and recently passed away. That's it. Jide panics. He secretly collects a sample of Naomi's hair and sends it for a DNA test, hoping to confirm what he fears most. But somehow, Naomi finds out. She intercepts the result before it gets to him. When he checks the mailbox, there's nothing. He waits a few days. Still, nothing. Then, Naomi casually mentions at dinner that she hopes everyone in the house trusts each other. Her eyes lock with his for a second too long. It's like she knows everything he's doing. At the dinner table, Naomi becomes part of the family more and more. She helps Tamara cook. She laughs with Bryce. She helps clean up. Everyone loves her. But for Jide, every smile she gives feels like a knife. He can't focus on work. He's jumpy. He checks the cameras in the house again and again. He wonders if she's playing a game, if she knows the truth, and if she's planning something. He starts to sweat during meals. Tamara notices, but he says it's stress. Bryce thinks his dad is just being protective, but Naomi sees everything. She keeps her calm. She never shows anger. She never asks strange questions. But every time she speaks, it's like she's reminding him, I know what you did. Jide begins to lose it. He checks Naomi's room when no one's around. He looks through her things, but he finds nothing. Just books, makeup, clothes. She's too careful. She's always one step ahead, and she never gives him a reason to accuse her. But she's there, living in his house, dating his son, looking like the child he tried to erase. And Jide is falling apart, little by little, while she watches, calm and quiet, waiting for the perfect moment. The house was full of people, but Jide felt completely alone. Naomi sat beside Bryce, his teenage son, acting like the perfect guest. She smiled when spoken to, nodded politely, and laughed gently when Bryce whispered something in her ear. On the outside, she looked like any other teenager in love. But to Jide, every movement, every glance felt rehearsed, planned. Her presence filled the room with something cold, something he couldn't shake. Tamara moved around with a fake smile, trying to host, but Jide could see her eyes flickering toward Naomi again and again. She was uneasy too, though she didn't say it out loud. Naomi acted like she didn't notice. She carried herself with confidence, like she belonged in the Cole family. But Jide knew better. He just didn't know how. Naomi had been getting closer to the family for weeks. Since Bryce introduced her, she had visited almost every weekend. She helped with dinner. She joined in family talks. Even Jide's business partners had complimented her. But to Jide, her eyes said something else. They weren't just familiar. They were haunting. They reminded him of Amarachi, his late wife, and her voice. Sometimes, when she spoke softly, he could almost hear Zena, his daughter, the daughter he thought died years ago. He tried to convince himself he was imagining things, that the guilt of what he and Tamara did was finally breaking his mind. But Naomi's presence made it worse. She was too calm, too perfect. He started to feel like a stranger in his own home. His hands would sweat. He couldn't eat properly. Every time Naomi laughed, he felt it crawl under his skin. At the dinner table, Naomi sat gracefully and joined the conversation like she had always been there. She talked to Tamara about food, to Bryce about school, and even asked Jide about his business. Her questions were simple, polite, but Jide felt like they were digging into him. He gave short answers, trying not to meet her eyes. Then something strange happened. Naomi started speaking softly to a small group at the table. Her words were calm, her tone smooth, but what she said made Jide's heart pound. She began talking about a little girl, a girl who woke up in a strange house after a fire. She said the girl was told her mother had died, that she had no one left in the world, that she was given a new name and raised quietly, far away from everyone. The room went quiet. Bryce laughed and said something like, "Wow, that's pretty creative." Others smiled, thinking it was just a made-up tale, but Jide's hand shook and his wineglass slipped, spilling across the table. He quickly reached for napkins, trying to cover his reaction, but his eyes were locked on Naomi. Tamara stood frozen. Her face went pale. Then, without a word, she turned and left the room. Everyone else stayed quiet for a moment, confused. Naomi didn't look surprised. She didn't ask if everything was okay. She didn't stop smiling. She just looked at Jide, and her lips held that small, perfect smile. Not wide, not warm, just long enough to make his skin crawl. Jide couldn't breathe right. His thoughts were spinning. Naomi had told the truth, but in a way no one else could notice. Only he and Tamara knew what really happened that night. Only they knew who that girl might be. And now she was sitting at his table, dating his son, smiling like a ghost who had come back, not for peace, but for something else. Tamara couldn't sleep anymore. Every little noise at night made her jump. Every shadow in the hallway made her heart race. It all started when the first letter showed up. No name, no return address, just 3 words written in bold black ink. She knows, that was it. But those 2 words were enough to shake her to her core. She sat on the kitchen floor holding that letter for hours, her hands shaking the entire time. Days later, another envelope came. This one had more words. Zina remembers. Tamara dropped it the moment she read it. Her hands covered her mouth as she gasped. Her legs felt weak. Zina? That couldn't be possible. Zina was supposed to be gone, burned, lost in the fire they planned. She couldn't remember anything, right? But it didn't stop there. One morning, Tamara walked out to get the mail and found a 3rd envelope waiting for her. Inside was a simple drawing. A child's hand had drawn it, a red car with flames around it, and beside the car, 2 stick figures, one big, one small. She knew exactly what it meant. That was the night they tried to erase everything. Tamara's world started to fall apart. She would stare out the window for hours. She couldn't eat. She stopped going to her yoga classes, stopped seeing her friends. She stayed home, watching Naomi like a hawk. Every smile Naomi gave, every quiet glance, made her stomach twist. She began to cry at night, softly so Bryce wouldn't hear. But Jide heard. She told Jide about the letters, about the drawing. She begged him to confess. "We made a mistake," she said over and over. "We have to tell the truth before it's too late." But Jide refused. He didn't believe in giving up. He had built everything with control, with power, and now it felt like Naomi was the one in control. Jide wasn't just scared that Naomi might be Zina. He was scared she might be something else, something that came back not just to remind, but to punish. He'd see her eyes watching him, quiet but sharp, her voice so calm, but every word made him sweat. He started having dreams where Naomi stood at the end of his bed, just watching, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Tamara couldn't handle it anymore. She tried to tell Bryce to stop seeing Naomi, but he pushed back. "You always act like I can't make decisions," he shouted. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." Tamara broke down right there in the living room. Bryce had never seen her cry like that. She begged him, "Please, just stay away from her." Bryce didn't understand. He thought his mother was losing her mind. But Naomi understood everything. Every time Tamara tried to speak, Naomi would simply offer a calm look, a kind word. It only made it worse. Tamara started locking her bedroom door at night. She whispered prayers under her breath. She searched old news articles and school records, trying to find anything to prove Zina had survived. But the past had been buried too well, or so she thought. The guilt that Tamara had buried years ago was alive now, breathing through Naomi's smile, whispering through the letters. And deep down, Tamara knew this wasn't over. It had only just begun. Jide couldn't take it anymore. The fear had grown inside him like a fire he couldn't put out. He was losing sleep. He couldn't eat. Every time Naomi walked into the room, his heart beat faster, not from love or pride like Bryce felt, but from pure fear. He had to talk to her alone. He had to know the truth, even if it destroyed him. One evening, he found her sitting on the back patio, calm as ever, staring out at the night sky. He sat across from her, his hands shaking slightly. "Naomi," he said, voice low. "Who are you really?" She turned to him slowly, her face still and unreadable. Then she looked straight into his eyes and said, clear and cold, "I survived you once, but this time, I bury you." Jide froze. The way she said it, no fear, no emotion. It sent chills through his body. He tried to speak, but Naomi pulled out her phone and pressed play. A voice came through the speaker, Tamara's voice, slurred from alcohol, filled with guilt. "She knows, Jide. That girl knows. I see her eyes every time I close mine. We killed them. We killed Amarachi and Zina. I can't live like this anymore." Jide's face turned pale. He stood up fast, panicked, trying to snatch the phone from Naomi, but she stepped back. "That's just the beginning," she said calmly. "You thought you buried us, but you only planted the truth, and it's growing now, fast." Then she turned and walked away. No screaming, no threats, just those heavy words hanging in the air. Jide stood there, stunned. For the first time, he didn't feel like the one in control. Naomi had proof, she had power, and worse, she had a plan. What he didn't know was that Bryce, sweet and unaware, was upstairs in his room at that very moment. He had no idea what storm was coming. He was holding a small box in his hand, with a ring inside. Tomorrow, he planned to propose to Naomi. He even practiced what he'd say. He believed she was the one, his future. Meanwhile, Naomi's quiet war was moving forward, one step at a time. She didn't shout, she didn't attack. She just let the truth slip in, like poison in water. Jide's mind was racing. If Naomi showed that recording to the police, everything would fall apart. His business, his reputation, his freedom, gone. If she showed Bryce, their family would be destroyed. But something inside told him Naomi wouldn't go to the police. Not yet. She wanted something else, something deeper, something personal. He sat in the dark that night, holding his head in his hands. The house felt too quiet, too heavy. Every corner seemed to watch him. Every whisper of wind felt like a voice saying, "She's back." Tamara wasn't answering his calls. She had vanished into guilt and fear. And Naomi, she was still smiling, still pretending, still waiting. Jide now understood. Confessing wouldn't save him. The past wasn't something he could fix with words or tears. Naomi didn't want a sorry. She didn't want money. She wanted him to feel what he made them feel. Helpless, scared, alone. And the worst part, this was only the beginning. Naomi couldn't hide it anymore. The closer Bryce got to her, the heavier her heart became. Every time he looked at her with love, she felt a pain in her chest. She wasn't just hurting him by keeping the truth, she was hurting herself too. So one evening, she asked him to sit down. No jokes, no smiles, just quiet truth. She looked him in the eyes and said, "I have something to tell you, and it will change everything." Bryce didn't understand at first. He laughed nervously, thinking she was joking, but then Naomi pulled out the DNA results. Printed, highlighted, her name next to his, the proof that they shared the same father, Jide. At first, Bryce stared at the paper in silence. His hands began to shake. "What is this?" he whispered. "This isn't real." Naomi's voice cracked, but she stood firm. "I'm Zena. Your father tried to kill me. He killed my mother, and he made sure no one would ever know I survived." Bryce dropped the paper. He stood up, stumbled back and rushed to the bathroom. Naomi heard him throw up. She wanted to run after him, to hold him, to take the pain away, but she knew he needed to break first. When he came out, his face was pale, wet with tears. "All this time," he said, voice trembling. He couldn't even finish the sentence. "I didn't know when we first met," Naomi said softly, "but I couldn't walk away once I did. I had to show you. You deserve to know what your father did." Bryce sat down again. He buried his face in his hands. He cried like a child. He thought about all the lies he had been told, the fake smiles, the dinners, the stories Tamara told. None of it was real. His whole world felt fake. But even in his pain, he looked at Naomi and said something she didn't expect. "You're my sister, and I still care about you. I'm sorry for what he did. I'm sorry for what my mum did. I'm with you now. Let's make them pay." Naomi's eyes filled with tears, not because she was sad, but because she wasn't alone anymore. Now it wasn't just about revenge. It was about justice. For Amarachi, for Zena, for every year they were silenced. Bryce was no longer just Jide's son. He was Naomi's brother, and he was ready to fight beside her. The courtroom was packed. Reporters, cameras, curious strangers. Everyone wanted to hear the story of the man who killed his wife and tried to kill his own daughter. Jide and Tamara, once respected and wealthy, now sat in silence, handcuffed and broken. Naomi walked in wearing a simple dress, her face calm but strong. She looked straight ahead. She wasn't there to cry. She was there to speak. When the judge asked if she had something to say, Naomi stood. The room fell quiet. Her voice was steady. "My name is Zena Amarachi Cole," she said. "I was 7 years old when my father put me and my mother in a car and set it on fire. He left us to die. My mother didn't make it, but I survived." The judge nodded. Naomi continued. She told them about waking up in a stranger's house, about being given a new name, about hiding, growing up always wondering why her father did it. Then one day, meeting Bryce and realizing the truth had found her again. Tamara couldn't stop shaking. She whispered something to her lawyer. When it was her turn to speak, she started crying. "I wasn't in my right mind," she said. "It was all Jide. I didn't want anyone to die. I was scared." No one believed her. Jide sat with a blank face. Then, out of nowhere, he clutched his chest. He fell to the floor, gasping. People screamed. The guards called for help, but the judge didn't stop the trial. A doctor checked Jide and stood up. "He's faking," the doctor said. "He's fine." Naomi looked at her father with no emotion. "Still acting," she said under her breath. Then she played the audio, a recording from the night of the fire. Her small voice screaming, "Mommy, wake up, please. It's hot. Mommy." The courtroom went silent again. Some people covered their mouths. Others wiped tears from their eyes. The sound of that little girl's voice burned into everyone's memory. The prosecutor looked at the jury. That's the voice of a child who was supposed to die. And the man responsible sits right there. The jury didn't take long. Both Jide and Tamara were found guilty. First-degree murder, attempted murder, conspiracy. Every word echoed like justice being spoken out loud. Outside the courthouse, Naomi stood with Bryce. Reporters shouted questions, flashing cameras in their faces. But Naomi didn't answer. She just looked up at the sky. "Mom," she whispered. "We did it." She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. But she finally felt free. Inside, Jide was led away. Tamara was crying, begging for mercy. But no one listened. The lies, the cover-ups, the pain, they were all out now. And the world had seen the truth. Naomi didn't just win a trial. She broke a curse. She took back her name, her voice, and her power. And for the first time in 12 years, she wasn't running anymore. After the trial ended, Jide was sent to prison for life. He would spend every day behind bars, remembering what he had done. Tamara was sent to a mental hospital. The doctors said she had lost her mind, but many believed it was just guilt eating her alive. She screamed at night, calling Naomi's name like a ghost from the past. No one came to visit her. No one wanted to. Bryce couldn't stay. The city, the house, even his name, it all reminded him of lies. So he packed his things and moved to Atlanta. He changed his last name. He didn't want to be a Cole anymore. That name had brought pain and blood. In Atlanta, he started over. New apartment, new job, new life. But deep inside, he was still healing. Naomi stayed in Baltimore. She opened a small bookstore on a quiet street. It wasn't just a business. It was a place where she could breathe. She filled the shelves with books about truth, strength, and survival. She never told customers her real story. She didn't need to. She had already lived it. Bryce didn't call or text often, but once every year, on the same day, he showed up at Naomi's bookstore. He didn't say much. Neither did she. Sometimes they just looked at each other. Sometimes Bryce picked out a book and left money on the counter. Then he'd nod. She'd nod back. And he'd leave. There was no need for big words. No long talks. They understood each other without saying a thing. They had shared pain. They had survived it in different ways. And though they weren't close anymore, they were still tied. By blood, by truth, and by what they had lost. Naomi never asked him to stay longer. Bryce never tried to explain how he felt. Some wounds don't heal with time. They just stop bleeding. That was enough for both of them. Her bookstore became a safe place for many. Kids came in after school. Mothers browsed on weekends. No one knew the quiet woman behind the counter had once survived a fire meant to kill her. No one knew she had watched her family fall apart and still found the strength to stand. Bryce, on the other hand, lived a quiet life in Atlanta. He had no children, no wife, but he did volunteer at a shelter once a week, helped teens who had lost their parents. Maybe it was his way of fixing what he couldn't fix before. Maybe it helped him sleep at night. Naomi never told anyone that Bryce was her half-brother. People asked sometimes, curious about the tall man who came once a year and never smiled. She'd just say, "He's an old friend." And in a way, he was. A friend who had seen the worst of her life. A friend who had held her secret when it was too heavy. A friend who had broken and rebuilt with her, even if silently. Their connection remained. Not loud, not warm, but real. Strong like roots buried deep underground. unseen but never gone.